Hi, welcome to today's episode of Financial Fluency. Today I have Danielle Watson back with me. This is Danielle Watson of the Purse Process and the Pocket Muse. And today she is back again so we can talk about her brand new book, which is called Dear Self, I Love You, Keep Going, 365 Inspiring Notes from My Bittersweet Year of Heartbreak and Healing. So Danielle, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Jen. Really happy to be here.
I'm going to hold up a little picture. If you're watching this on YouTube, here is a picture of the cover of the book on my Kindle. If you are listening, it's a very cute cover. It's kind of written out on a notebook with a wedding ring at the top. And
it's very pink.
Very pink. It's hard to tell on this cover, because it's the Kindle white pages is kind of gray. But yeah, so tell us about this project, this story, this year-long journey that you took to write this book.
Yeah, it's such an interesting story because I had a lifelong dream of being an author, and I never would have guessed that this is the way that lifelong dream would be fulfilled. So for those who did not listen to the last interview that you and I did together, I'll just give a slight backstory to how this got set off. So I was giving a TED Talk in 2015, and a couple of weeks before that, a couple of hours, like 48 hours before I was to get on the plane to do that, I received divorce papers taped on my front door. And it was one of those moments in life where you can either crawl under the covers and cry and nobody will blame you, or you can put your big girl panties on and you can keep going. And so in that moment, I decided I was going to keep going. I had prepared to give this talk. I wanted to do it. It was something that meant a lot to me. And so I found a way to just get the support I needed so that I could make it through that very important moment in my life. Now, a couple of weeks later, when I got back from doing that, of course, all the excitement and adrenaline of, I'm giving a TED Talk has gone away. The reality has set in. Lawyers are going back and forth. And I was just in that place of, how am I going to get through this? And I was doing things for myself to try to keep my mood up, try to keep my spirits up. And one day, September 22nd, which would have been my husband's 40th birthday, I walked by the mirror in my bedroom, and I caught my own eyes in the mirror, and I realized that even though things were not going that well in my life in that moment, that I still had a little bit of sparkle in my eye, and I was still living my life, and I was still just putting myself forward, and I hadn't stopped doing things that mattered to me. And I was so proud of myself. And I walked over to the mirror, and like a crazy person, I started talking to myself and telling myself how much I loved myself and how proud of myself I was, and what an amazing human being I knew I was, and that I was here to do great things, and I was going to continue to do great things. And I posted about that on Facebook because I didn't want to forget. And I posted it in the form of a note to self, almost like a little Post-it note, a little virtual Post-it note to myself. And it was amazing. People just responded to it. They saw what I'd written, and they just found it so inspiring. And one of my friends, Donna, she asked if it would be okay if she printed out that note and put it on her bathroom mirror to remind herself of how much she loved herself and what an amazing human being she was. And that just felt so good. It felt so good that my expression of self-love inspired somebody else and made them feel good. And even though I was in this very sort of dark moment in my life. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to write a few more of these? I loved the way people responded to them. So I was like, more, please. More of you guys loving what I'm writing. And so I just wrote another one the next day, and another one the day after that. And at some point, I just was like, what if I just wrote one of these every day for a year? There was no grand design, no grand plan behind it. And I just kept writing them, and most of them I did post on my Facebook page, and people loved them. And it's been interesting watching do you have Time Hop or Facebook, reminds you this time last
Memory.
year? Memories, yes. So I've been watching because the book was complete in September as far as the content, because it was 365 days. Those memories, I've been seeing the old notes coming up in my feed. And as far as I can tell, it wasn't until January of 2016 that it even occurred to me that I should make these into a book. So I'd been writing them since September. And then it took me till January that, hey, I might have something here. So it's funny how it just sort of organically turned into this amazing project.
So could I ask you a couple questions?
Of course.
When your husband put the divorce papers taped to the door, was this totally unexpected? Had you guys already separated, or?
We had already been separated, yes. And the most upsetting part about that was that he didn't do anything to make sure that I had my big moment, to, delay that until, have your moment. I'm still going to do this. But yeah, we had already separated. But coming home to those papers, I tell you, that was not expected. I did expect more compassion than that.
Okay. And I know for a TED Talk, that's something a lot of people covet, being able to do that. I imagine it's not something that you can just be like, I'm having a rough day. Can I do this next week instead? That doesn't really work, does it?
No, it really doesn't. I imagine if I had gone to them and said, I can't do this, there may have been an invitation extended to do it the next year. But I found in life that when opportunity knocks, you really need to embrace it and you really need to take it. And so what I did to find what I needed to be able to do that, because I knew I could not get on that stage knowing what was really going on in my life and pretend like everything was okay. I knew that holding it together and giving a big speech, I could not do. So I just opened up to my community, of course, my mom and my close friends first. And then I put it out there on social media that this is what had happened and that I was really hurting and I was very upset, and I needed everybody who cared about me to send me love and energy and positive vibes. And there was just this huge outpouring of support that I really believe carried me through for weeks after I got even back from giving the talk. It was just like this outpouring of positivity that it filled up all of those hurt places inside, so that I was able to function and I was able to do all of the things that I needed to do.
That's good. Well, and I have your book right here on my Kindle right now. I just popped one open. Would you want to read that first note to yourself? Do you have it there?
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me just open up my Kindle.
I just personally, one of the things I love about audible.com is when an author reads in their own voice. That's why I thought, rather than me read your note, I think if you would read your note, that would be powerful.
Okay, so September 22nd, this is the first note. It says, "Dear self, I love you very much. You are an amazing woman, and I am so freaking proud of the way you conduct yourself in all aspects of life, especially when things get tough. Look into your own eyes and see what an incredible human being you have become. Even in adversity, you beam with love and enthusiasm for life. Keep going. The best is yet to come, and things you never thought in your wildest dreams you get to experience are making their way straight to your door. Trust me, it's going to be awesome. Love, me."
And now we are in the early part of 2017. So this wasn't this past September, it was the September 2015, right? It was when that first book was written.
That's exactly right. So if anyone buys the book, you'll notice that there are two sections in the table of contents that say September. Because it was a year-long project, I wanted to preserve the original order of the notes. So it begins in September and then it also ends in September.
And now you can look back on that September and look at all the amazing things that have happened, including publishing a book. Since then, you were right, weren't you, with all your advice for yourself? I
really was. And it's amazing. I felt the truth of it in the moment, even though I didn't know what was to come. And I look back on that note and there are several of the notes, actually, when I look back on them, I think somebody amazing wrote this. I can't believe that I wrote this. It was like something from deeper inside of me, or something bigger than me was telling me these things and encouraging me and reminding me that I was good and that I needed to keep going. And it's amazing.
And I think a lot of these things are things that a lot of people need to hear, but would really struggle to write to themselves, Yeah. And it's interesting because you use both first person and second person.
Mm-hmm.
It is like, it's almost like a future you letting the past like, it's going to be okay, just keep going and you'll get here to where we are now. And I've heard a lot of people do these exercises where you talk to yourself as a child, kind of either through therapy or like meditation kinds of things, where you try to address hurts or things that happened to you in the past. But it's almost like in your present, you were that person who was hurt and you were reaching into a future you to come and get you through it.
Yeah, what you said about these being things that a lot of people would have a hard time saying to themselves, I've received that feedback quite a bit, that it's not always so easy for us to say such encouraging, loving words to ourselves. And I think that for me, sometimes when I was really struggling, I did exactly what you were just saying, where it was like this future me sort of reached in and sort of said the things that I maybe couldn't really say to myself in the moment.
Mm. And I also think it's a pretty amazing feat to almost accidentally write a whole book, because so many people agonize, including myself. I'm working on finishing a book myself right now that I want to try to self-publish in February was my goal, but I'm really wrestling with it right now. And I realized this morning that I'm making it difficult. And looking at a book like this, I'm like, there's no doubt this is a real book. It takes you through a whole year. There's a progression. There's growth. We watch you change how you talk to yourself throughout the year. And knowing the background story, which you go into a little bit in the author's notes at the beginning, even though it's just a note per day, 1 page per day, it really is a story. And there's a whole story arc going on there. And it's beautiful to see how simple, and not that I'm saying, I don't know how easy this book was for you. I know you went through a lot getting it, all the notes and experiencing that year of your life. But on the same hand, just there's a beautiful simplicity to the whole project and you didn't complicate it, and you got it done and you put it out and people are loving it. I love it. I think it's beautiful.
It's funny because you're right. If I had sat down and decided, okay, I'm going through a really hard time in my life, I'm going to write a book about it, I would have made it complicated. I would have made it hard. I would have sat down and wrestled with what makes sense. And It was really a gift from the universe that it happened organically. And by the time it was written, I decided it was going to be a book. It was like almost a third written. And I'll tell you a secret. It feels like I'm getting away with something because it was so like you said, simple. It wasn't necessarily easy because emotionally it wasn't easy, but as far as the time commitment in creating the content, it was just most of the time it was a few minutes every day. Now there were some days where it was longer because I was staring at the computer going, what can I say to myself? Today was so awful. Like, what do I say that's uplifting? Because I really was committed to saying something that was uplifting to myself, that was forward thinking, that reflected how I wanted to feel, even if it wasn't exactly how I did feel in the moment. And I truly do feel like I'm getting away with something, and like the book police are going to be like, this wasn't hard enough for you. You need to do this over again. But I'll also tell you that it is my intention to write a memoir about the stories behind the notes and what I went through. And it'd be nice if it was just as easy, but somehow I'm imagining there's going to be a little bit more trying to make it right rather than to just do what's in my heart.
Well, at least you already have this map from
Right.
that time for that. You have something from every day that you were experiencing it. And I think that anyone going through a really hard year could really use this. Regardless of, I can't help think of, with my daughter and all of her health issues, or someone who's going through cancer, or, anything where you really need encouragement to keep going and not give up and not Well, I mean, everyone needs some moments of lying on their bed and crying,
Yes.
but still living your life. Whatever's left of your life that you have is a gift. And it's, yeah, these are really beautiful notes. I also have to say, I'm doing a 100 book challenge for this year for Goodreads. If anyone's on Goodreads, you should go on and add me because I'm loving Goodreads right now. This was one of the fastest reads because this went into my 2017 count. And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, it's more than 365 pages because you have your author's notes and you have some explanations and things. But the bulk of it are these notes. And some of them, it's just a sentence or two. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I'm getting through my reading challenge so fast. So I loved it for that, too.
Hashtag winning.
Hashtag winning, totally. And I wonder, are you doing a print on demand? Is this something, because I can't help thinking what a nice gift this would be for somebody.
I know, it's funny. I really want it to be a hardback print, not just a paperback. And right now I have not found a resource to make it happen the way I want to. I agree with you. It is such a beautiful book to give as a gift. And the design in it is so beautiful that I have a very certain standard that I want it to meet. And so I just haven't come across that yet, but I sincerely hope to be able to provide this to readers in a hardback edition at some point in the near future. And it's funny how you said, yes, I actually have already set up a tearaway calendar. It will be a tearaway calendar at some point. I will probably produce some fridge magnets out of some of the most special notes. And you know how you were saying that you read it very quickly. It's so interesting, the timing in the universe. My very best friend, Amber, she supported me a great deal as I was going through this process. And the day before my book was released, her father unexpectedly passed away. Oh. And so it was interesting because as I was going through the process of publishing the book, she was like, this is such an uplifting book. I don't think it's just for people who are grieving. And I absolutely agreed with her. But when the book came out and she was then in the very first stages of grieving, it was interesting how the notes took on a whole different meaning to her. And she kind of did what you did, where she just kind of gobbled them all up, like just went one through the next. And then once because she was just looking for anything to help assuage the pain, right? Just to relieve the pain somehow with some kind of words. So she gobbled them all up. And then she decided, okay, now I'm going to go back and read one each day or a couple each day to kind of move through it. But it's just so interesting how the universe sets up things for us in the most mysterious ways. And I had no idea that what I wrote would end up supporting somebody who's so dear to me in a very difficult moment.
Yeah. Well, and I probably wouldn't have gobbled it up quite so quickly if we hadn't scheduled this interview. I obviously wanted to have read the book before we talked so that I knew what was in it. But another thing that just occurred to me as we were talking, and you were talking about reading a page a day, I can't help thinking that I would forget in my Kindle, but it might be something that people would like to get in their inbox every day. I mean, I wonder if people who are interested in the book could sign up and you could make a year-long funnel, a 365-day long funnel so that they get one message emailed to them every day. That might be something people would appreciate too.
When I was first publishing the notes, I actually was doing that. I was sending them out to people each day. And now that they're in a collection, I probably will do that again because I don't have to there's not so many moving parts to it. I can set it up in advance. But what I've been encouraging people, because a lot of people like you wish that it was available in hardback. And I'm telling people, get the free Kindle app on your phone or tablet because like you said, the bulk of the book is these little like Post-it note type notes and you carry your phone or your tablet with you all the time. So it's actually better to have it on your phone where you can pull it up anytime and look at a note for a little bit of encouragement than to have it on your Kindle e-reader. I really do believe that having these, it's like having a card deck in your phone. So I'm really encouraging people to do that.
You know what that just made me think of too, was I just thought, I sometimes will snap a screenshot of something encouraging and have it as my lock screen, and then I'll switch it out now and then. Because that could be something else if someone finds one of these particularly poignant for what's going on in their lives. You could, even have a week of it being one of them or something on your lock screen. So every time you pick it up, you just glance at that.
Yeah.
That'd be nice too. Yeah. I do have the Kindle app on my phone. My issue with it is I read a lot on screens, and I was finding that I couldn't seem to finish books on the Kindle app on my phone, especially in the evening when it was dark. My eyes would just be done. By the end of the day, I'm like, I need to just look at a real book or a real magazine or something without that blue backlight. Getting this, I got the Kindle Paperwhite for Christmas. I have finished. Actually, it looks like I have 9 books read, and it's only, what is today? The 13th of January when we're recording this. And I already have 9 books towards my challenge because it's allowed me to finish several books I started on here and just couldn't get through because my eyes were so tired. So I am now I'm so recommending anyone who wants to read, especially in the evenings, to get the Kindle Paperwhite. It's so much easier on your eyes.
Yeah, I have the Paperwhite too, because I'm right with you with just needing to not look at a screen.
Yeah. Well, and I do always get a lot of books for Christmas too. I just set this one up because I realized I hadn't finished it yet. Speaking of books.
Ooh, I love the illustration on that.
Isn't that nice? I haven't finished it yet, but I'm like, oh, Christmas is over. I really should finish this before it's completely not, the mood of the time. But I love Jeanette Winterson, and my husband tends to get me a Jeanette Winterson book each year when there's a new one out, if there is a new one out. And but so I also try to temper it with trading off with real books just so I don't get so tired. But this is making a huge difference. I am gobbling up books right now because it's so easy right now. And it's not quite this small. I can't fit it in my pocket, but it fits in my purse, honestly. And I'm not, I don't work for Amazon or anything. I'm so happy with how easy reading has gotten. And like yours, just, you just flip through the pages, and it was a really nice experience reading your book.
Thank you.
So I hope that anyone who is listening to this and needs some encouragement in their life will go and find it. We'll put links for sure in the show notes and the description for the book on Kindle. If you do get a hardback version or the tearaway calendar, which would be awesome. Though I can't help thinking, would you start it on September 22nd or would you start it on January 1st?
Yeah, I would have to change the formatting to go January 1st because that would just drive people crazy.
Yeah, it would be a weird thing to get a new calendar on the 22nd of September. People they're not in the market for a calendar yet then. But yeah, I have one from, it's Great Reads, is that tearaway calendar I showed you a minute ago. So it tells me something about mostly books I've never read, which is exciting too, which encourages me to buy more on my Kindle. But so also, okay, let me just quick backtrack to your business being the purse process and the Pocket Muse. No,
actually, I know. I have closed both of those down. I now have the Danielle Daily. My website is danielle-watson.com. So now I have a daily Facebook Live show that I do, and you can find it just by searching the Danielle Daily. And what I've transformed this into is, instead of doing, ooh, bless you.
I just did.
That was the cutest little sneeze ever.
That was my implosion sneeze. Like, I don't want to sneeze into the microphone and make everything be a big noise. Sorry. Pardon me for my sneeze.
No worries. Yeah, the show is a daily show. It's on weekdays at 3:00 p.m. Eastern. And the premise behind the show is that you can come there each and every weekday to find something positive, something inspiring, or something powerful. So I do the show, I give out the day's note to self, and the objective is really to get people thinking about themselves and speaking about themselves in a more positive way, to free people from those self-critical thoughts, to free people from those reasons that they couldn't support themselves by saying nice things to themselves when things go bad. Because I feel like that's such an important life skill that so many people have given me feedback that they just don't have because they haven't practiced it. That ability to support ourselves, to self-soothe. We're the only person who's going to be with us throughout our life. And we hope that other people will be there when we need them. But sometimes you're just having a bad day and you can't reach anybody, and you need to be able to be emotionally independent. And that is what I hope to teach people through the show.
I love using that term self-soothe for adults because as a parent, I think of that as a skill you try to instill in your children, how to self-soothe as infants and not always need to nurse or a pacifier. But that's true. There are a lot of times as adults when we just, that inner toddler.
Yes, the inner toddler.
Have a tantrum, and it's true that sometimes we just have to be able to soothe ourselves.
It is interesting. Like you said, it is something that parents often try to teach their children. And as adults, somehow we become dependent on our relationships or on how other people are treating us or what's going on in our life, or even things like food. We count on those things to soothe us. And I think that by developing our positivity muscle, by self-soothing, by being somebody who can talk ourselves through to, even if we don't know that things are going to be better, that it's likely that things are going to be better. Let's just hold out hope. The jury is not out that things are going to be horrible. And doing that, I think, is so important.
Well, there's a lot that we can do by taking positive actions to affect a positive outcome. And I also think when you were saying we learn how to soothe with food or relationships, I mean, there are two more I can think of that are really pretty massive, which are alcohol and pharmaceuticals. I mean, the United States right now, we have more people on mood-altering drugs than ever at any time. And I'm including myself. I'm on antidepressants, mild dose, and I would like to get off. My husband recently has managed to completely de-pharmacize himself.
Wow.
With some help, with some doctor supervision and some different things that he's been working on. But it has gotten me thinking about, I mean, both of us, when we were on antidepressants, neither of us did our doctor think we're clinically depressed. It was more situational with lack of sleep and all of the stuff with the kids' stressors. And right now, one of our dogs, our service dog, we thought she had pneumonia, and it's the jury's still out a little. We're doing more blood tests this week, but then it looked like it was heart disease, but she didn't respond to the medication for that. So now they think maybe it might be valley fever. We've spent so far about $800 on x-rays and tests and things and medications for her. But because she's such a special dog, we're trying to figure it out. But right now she has this hacking cough all through the night that wakes everybody up. So it's just those kind of things. And, I can't help wondering at a different time, would we have been put on pharmaceuticals at all? But it's such an easy thing for people to, it's a Band-Aid that you can just be like, oh, here's a Band-Aid.
Right.
You won't feel so bad. But then, and I do notice I almost never cry from depression like I used to in postpartum and things like that. And I'm generally happy, but I do feel like the peaks, it cuts the peaks off both sides being on antidepressants. So I think all of us learning to do what you're talking about for ourselves, not that anyone should just like cold turkey their antidepressants and be like, read some notes. It takes more than that. It takes, building up your support structure for yourself internally. But I think this could be a real part of it too. It's just knowing how to soothe yourself when you get upset instead of taking pills.
Yeah, I love that you brought this up. This is such an important point. I remember there was a particular day that was really, really bad, where I called my mom and I was just hysterical with grief and just, it was horrible. And my mom was like, maybe you should go get some medicine for that. And I absolutely believe that there are reasons to get medicine for things and to get you through. I remember in that moment thinking and telling her, no, I want to be allowed to have my full range of feelings. I want to be allowed to grieve. I want to be allowed to hurt. I want to be allowed that this doesn't feel good. And tomorrow when I wake up feeling happy, I want to be allowed to be happy. I want to be allowed to be joyful that the sun is shining. I want to be allowed my full range of emotions. And that was a conscious choice. And I think it's important that we allow people to make that choice, that it's okay to experience the full range of emotions. But if you get stuck in one, especially if it's one that doesn't feel good, there's nothing wrong with using something to help you get through that, whether that is positive notes or whether that is pharmaceuticals or whatever it is. I don't think of myself as somebody who is a kind of expert on grieving, but I have noticed that having been through this, a lot of people, when they are in those first throes of grief, look to me for what to do, because they see that I've come through to the other side with all my limbs intact and my heart still open. And, sometimes things happen and there's just nothing for it. And it just hurts. And it's okay to hurt for a little while. It's when we get stuck in not being able to experience other emotions or to be able to function that we need to develop those resources and ask people for help.
I think that's important too. When you feel like you can't get yourself out of it, to seek some help. And I do feel like that's part of the problem. I mean, we talked about the pharmaceuticals. For that, you do need to talk to someone and get prescriptions. Yeah. Alcohol is one that we can just drown our sorrows in. And not that I'm an expert on alcoholism or anything like that, but I do feel like a lot of people use that for self-medicating. Which if you find yourself doing that too much, that's good to seek some help with as well. If you're drinking alone, if you're drinking purely because you can't stand feeling the way you feel, that's probably a great time to talk to somebody.
I could not agree more.
Yeah. So just quick PSA in there. But if you can pick up a book like Danielle's book and feel encouraged, and maybe go to her Danielle Daily show, get in that community. Do you have a Facebook community where that happens, or is that on your page each day?
It's on the Danielle Daily page. You can find it there. I don't have a community set up for that yet. I do have a community set up for the book. There is a link in the very back of the book, and you can go there and discuss it. I'm still in the process of weaving the Danielle Daily and the notes together. I understand how they go together, but really bringing that forward and articulating it in a way that makes sense is still under development. And that's part of the fun of being in business for yourselves, is figuring out how all the puzzle pieces work together. And once you realize it, you're like, oh, it was so obvious all along. Like, I look back and I go, the purse process and my yoga business and the Pocket Muse and all the other things I've done, they are all adding to who I am and what I'm becoming. And I just, how that all fits together neatly is still revealing itself to me, but I know it always ends up working out.
Well, life doesn't always fit neatly, but lots of stuff fits into it. So, that's great. And I do feel like for people reading it who are going through something, I can't help thinking they like a group of some kind, because I know for me, posting on somebody's page, sometimes I'll watch things and comment, but I don't usually get personal unless I'm in some kind of protected space just a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
that's why I have the group for the book. So
for the book.
Makes sense. Yeah. There's a QR code in the back of the book, as well as the site written out at the very end. So if anybody wants to talk about the book, talk about their experience, talk about what the notes mean to them, please, check that out on Facebook.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about this today, Danielle.
Thank you for inviting me.
You bet. And I'm going to join your group, so I will see you in there.
Awesome. All right.
Bye-bye.